Welcome, everyone. We will begin the webinar on Matrix Wand 3D Blueprinting and Measuring System. I'm Melissa Jolls with RDA Impact. Avery Hodge, Sales Coordinator for the Matrix Wand, is your presenter today. The presentation will take approximately 30 to 40 minutes. We are recording it and we'll post it on our YouTube channel. If you have questions during the webinar, you can type them in the chat box at the bottom right of your screen, and they will be answered during the presentation. Now, I'll turn it over to Avery.
Well, first, I want to kick everything off, and I want to thank Melissa Jolls and the entire RD8 network for inviting us on the webinar today. Like Melissa stated, I represent the Matrix Wand, and the entire team here is extraordinarily excited about this new partnership and truly being another resource for your alliance. You've seen us in the past at shows like SEMA, NACE, Northeast Trade Show, Fender Bender. We try to remain extraordinarily active in the industry, and by jumping on the webinar today, we just hope to expand it that much further. We've recently made some great changes that have been really well received by the collision industry in a whole. So today what we want to do is give you a quick overview on the Matrix Wand itself, how it works, why it's important to use it, as well as introduce you to some of our more recent changes and how they can benefit the repair process and the shop altogether. So I want to go ahead and introduce myself real quick. Again, my name is Avery Hodge. I'm the sales coordinator here at the Matrix Wand. My background ranges from dealership sales and service to insurance adjusting, body shop estimating and operations. And most recently, I've been affiliated with the Matrix Wand for a little under the year in different capacities. We're also lucky enough today to have Roger Cada on the webinar with us. Roger, would you like to go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thanks, Avery. I appreciate that. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Roger Cada, and I've been in this industry now for 50 years. I started out as a hands-on technician and went through various schools to upgrade my career and went into becoming a journeyman technician, both paint, refinishing, and structural at that time. Moved into management, worked in independent shops as well as dealership shops. So I've had a lot of background in those things. In 1984, then I moved into a big insurance company, the #1 insurance company in North America, and worked with them for 31 years. But during that time, I was an estimator for them around the Chicagoland area, a trainer for them at the same time. And in 1987, I was pulled into their corporate office to start training with their leadership and their upper management around the country. This turned into a position in 1991 where I actually became the lead trainer for all estimators that were taught between 1991 and 2015 of my retirement. I came back to the industry basically to work on the area of damage assessment or estimating and really bring the solutions and the keys that are needed to properly get your justifications in place so you can get the payments that you need, not only for yourself, but more so for the car to be prepared correctly for the common customer. That's more important than anything else today. So thank you for allowing me to be on this, Avery, and look forward to talking to you all in a few minutes.
Roger, thanks. We're really, really excited to have you today and definitely feel lucky in having you as well. So I definitely think it's important to start the webinar off with also a little brief introduction to the company as a whole. Matrix Wand was started back in 2002 as Matrix Electronic Measuring, and it originally produced universal measuring systems, more like what you're probably used to seeing today when you're performing 3D measurements. Before the concept of the wand really even existed, the founders of the company had already been in the collision industry for about 20 years, and they realized that all in all, structural damage wasn't always getting identified, and when it was identified, it wasn't being documented properly or to the expectations of the insurers. So a lot of times it was getting repaired for free or just in the operation of the repair. And I'm sure this is probably a pain point in everyone's business today in one aspect or another, whether it be with identifying structural repairs or getting paid for pre and post scanning, or really any other operation that needs to be done in order to put the car back in its true lost position. So around 2007, the idea of the wand was really first developed, and we began research and development to build that tool that not only could quickly and easily identify those structural damages that were being overlooked, but it could also effectively document those damages at the same time to ensure that the body shop and the technician could get reimbursed, to get compensated for fixing those damages. So we introduced the wand to the market at the 2012 SEMA show, and it was actually named the best new collision repair and refinish product of the year. And this is really where we began to succeed over and over and laid a foundation for continued growth. So jumping forward to present day, we've had the opportunity to become the leader in 3D collision repair measuring and blueprinting. During that growth, we partnered with many great companies across really the entire industry. OEMs from Honda and training organizations like iCar and Repair University, and even some of the top collision centers in the country, like Big Sky Collision Center and European Motor Car Works. These different companies and organizations have identified the wand as the state-of-the-art technology right now for 3D measuring, and they've done an excellent job implementing this technology into their day-to-day programs to ensure a better repair and to increase their revenue. So, in order to keep driving the industry forward, Matrix is always looking at tomorrow and how we can continue to make that technology even better. So as you've seen in the last week on many of our industry publications, and the Matrix Wand just announced their next partnership. And that's with a company you might never have heard of called Vortex. Vortex is a global company, and it operates with affiliates truly all over the world. They manufacture something that we call dry bulk handling equipment. And they do this for industries ranging all the way from food and agriculture to automotive and chemical. For example, some of the valves that the OEMs currently use to manage the metallic flake that goes into their base coats are actually produced by Vortex. So naturally, in their lines of business, they're required to have an extreme focus on precision and accuracy. So it really translates into a pretty organic fit for the Matrix Wand to be manufactured at their head facility in Salina, Kansas, smack dab in the middle of the country. They also bring resources and economies to scale to the table, and that really has empowered Vortex to meet any demand that the collision industry might see fit. It also significantly has dropped the cost for us to manufacture the tool, and we've now been able to pass those savings onto the body shop directly, and we'll go over that at the end of the presentation. So as I mentioned, Vortex is, really helping us with our economies of scale and expedite certain things. And the first thing that they wanted to do was help us expedite our latest version of our software called Fender Bolt. This originally wasn't scheduled to be released until 2020, but with their assistance over the past few months, we've been able to get the ball rolling and go ahead and push this out, and it's currently in production right now. Following the trends of the following the trends of technology as a whole, Fender Bolt is now completely cloud-based software. And this has allowed Matrix to supply shops with more of the KPIs that they're already used to working with, as well as provide additional options for online training and support, just trying to make that ease of use even more convenient for the customer. It also gives access directly to our new iCar certified online training courses, and those are good for 12 iCar credit hours once they're completed. And those can be completed by anyone in the shop who sits down and takes the online training courses through our module. It also provides the shop with an infinite number of data points to measure from, so they can measure the entire car. They're not tied down to those Mitchell data points that are predetermined for them. If the technician feels like something is a point of interest and it needs to be measured, they can go ahead and measure it, even if it's through solid objects such as the core support or the engine block itself. You don't necessarily have to detrim the car. As long as we can see it, we can measure it. And this is really just the beginning of Fender Bolt. There's much more in the works that's in the pipeline, and being subscribed to Fender Bolt allows our customers to receive those updates automatically as they're released. So Roger, I know that you work with quite a few shops out in the field today that are already utilizing the Matrix Wand. Can you kind of give me an idea of how our setup process might differ from the conventional 3D measuring device?
Sure thing, Avery. Hey, as we take a look at today's cars, we find that there's possibly more areas of damage that we never really thought about in the past. And the fact that we used to use gaps to identify movement because the fenders are securely bolted to the aprons, but that today is no longer the case because of the pedestrian safety features that are built into the front of a car since around 2008. And so what you find now is if an estimator is assessing damage at the beginning and wants to measure that car, they probably have to either use a tram bar, which is not going to be all that accurate, or they put it on their structural repair equipment so they can use the measuring system supplied with that. But the problem with using your structural measuring equipment is now you've tied up that stall for a period of time, you've lost production in that area, and it's not the easiest thing to do is you try to cycle that car into the shop. And the reason it's so important on the front end to estimate this up front is because of advanced steels that are being used in the car. And as these bend, if you look at the OEM repair procedures that apply to that vehicle, it'll tell you whether they can be fixed or not. And so if I don't know that they need to be replaced up front, number one, that could change the car's repair cost to a total, or I need those parts because we're going to fix it, so they need to be ordered up front, not when the car is sitting on top of my structural alignment equipment. The other thing too is that if I want to measure the upper body, which a lot of damage is flowing through today because of the design of the car, a lot of you have to build a cage in the back or do other things that are quite more complicated than the typical underbody measurements. And this tool provides ease of access to measure the upper body with accuracy that can't be, identified with normal equipment. Meaning it's down to 1/10 of a millimeter, and it can actually go into the hundreds if necessary. But it's not set up that way unless you set it that way. But it makes the process of doing the measurements on the car quick and easy. Plus, because of the image on that documentation, it allows you to justify that the work was done to the bill payer, and it also allows you to show them that this is the actual car that's being measured and what those measurements look like from the damages that were created on that vehicle.
So, Roger, historically, when we've needed to get measurements, especially 3D measurements on a vehicle, that's had to been completed by either, an A-Tech or our frame tech, someone who's been ASE certified or ICAR certified, who has some level of knowledge of how to work these systems. Do we need someone like an ASE certified technician to operate the wand? Is it only something that the technician might be able to use? Or is it really open to anyone?
That's a good question, Avery, because here's the thing. The tool is so versatile it can be used by anybody as long as they understand how the program works, which is not difficult to understand and learn. The other thing, too, is they have to understand what they're measuring on the car. And this can be a learned skill. And so if you think about this for a second, if I can put this in the hands of people in the front office, and I don't care if it's, what your estimator level is, they can learn this fairly quick. The tool is not that heavy, so regardless of the size of the estimator or their, if it's a guy or a gal, they can both handle this tool really easy, and it can be used up in that area, which is really identifies what the car needs before it gets into the workflow. And that creates efficiencies, meaning that the car will actually go through the production cycle much quicker because everything's captured up front on the original estimate. The other thing, too, is that this thing can be used on the back of the shop. It can be used by a body tech as well as a structural tech. And the reason I say body tech is that you have a lot of backup sensors and cameras in the back of that vehicle. Now, these backup sensors that are mounted on the quarter panel or rear body of the vehicle, if minor damage exists around those areas, when the part is repaired, it needs to make sure that the sensor location is put in the identical shape as the opposite side. Even if I'm replacing the panel on the car, quarter panel or rear body panel, as I mount that panel in, I have to make sure that those mounting points are where they need to be. Otherwise, when we finish the repair and paint the car and we send it out for calibration, it may not calibrate. So this is a way of actually checking that within a very short period of time to validate what's being done to the vehicle so that the outcome is positive. So getting back to the question, you can use it in the front office. It makes no difference in the person's structure or their stature. It basically can be used by anybody in the back of the shop. It can be used by your technicians on frame or your body techs as well. And even, the other thing too that's pretty cool about this, your parts department can use this. Because how many times, think about it, you get a hatch or a deck lid or a part door shell assembly, and you mount that to the car and it doesn't fit and you're wondering, is it the body of the car or is it the part itself? With this tool, because it requires no center line, I can measure that part on the floor or on the stand, and I can confirm that part's accuracy before I even edge it and trim it out or mount it to the car. So this is going to save time in the back of the business for checking in parts too.
You know, Roger, it's funny you say that because it always sparks the idea of the wand for a different use. We even have a few shops that keep it just the cart located up in their front office with the stand. So their customers are naturally intrigued on, hey, what is that? And they've actually closed more tickets or more customer pay jobs and captured more insurance work because they're able to explain what the wand does, how it benefits the process, and why their car with their blind spot monitor or whatever ADAS that their car is incorporated with, why the wand needs to be part of that repair. So it really works all over the shop.
It sure does. And like you said, customers, especially younger customers, love to see technology being used on their high-tech car. And so, yes, it does close more sales.
And, you know, when it comes to the Matrix Wand, what it's able to produce is an incredible amount of accurate and precise information in a really extremely short amount of time. It's giving you the ability to measure any point of interest on the vehicle so that your estimates can reflect that true damage the first time. It's about reducing the number of touches that your estimator has to make on that vehicle and eliminating the bulk of the supplements. You know, and something that I don't think we've touched on yet, Roger, is it really reduces the liability for the repair shop for that potential repair. You know, with such an easy setup time, like Roger, you were just talking about, it really benefits the shop to quickly take a post-repair measurement to show how that structure has moved and now how it's been brought back, and now the vehicle is leaving the facility the way the OE intended. And you now have that documentation to put it in your file and prove it should it become a problem later on.
You know, that's a great point, Avery, because here's the thing with documentation. It is your evidence, not only for the justification of your bill that you're sending in to the bill payer or the consumer, but it also is confirming with the post-repair measurements that this tool can easily apply what the car was returned to before it left your business. I mean, I'm sure I have people on the call now, and if they think about it, they've had some cars that they've repaired in their years past, and the car comes back several months later, or even a year later, and somebody, when they took it in for an alignment, is telling them that the car was not structurally corrected and the alignment cannot be performed. This tool can actually confirm through a post-repair measurement that the car structure was restored as it was done in the business. The other piece about liability, and this is the big one right now, is the ADAS systems. That's the advanced driver assist systems. And knowing that those sensors, cameras, and so on, the radars and the LiDARs in the front end of the car have been restored to their proper location is going to be critical, because if those systems fail, they can cause a possible second collision or even injuries. And then all that stuff would possibly be coming back to the last person who touched the car, which is the repair facility. So by having this post-repair inspections as well too, or measurements, confirming all those things I just mentioned, it can help you a lot in the future.
So the Matrix Wand, we've done a good job telling you what it can produce, but now we want to kind of explain how it's producing these results. How can we get these measurements so quickly and this information so accurate? And really, it's almost magic. It's just one step away. The technology behind the wand that the wand is based on has a really interesting history. Originally, one of the founders who developed the wand worked with NASA, and they were actually developing this technology for NASA's own applications. So I want to throw a really big scientific word at everyone. The term that NASA used was photogrammetry, and this is simply just taking measurements from photographs. So using photographs to determine dimension and taking measurements. And this concept's been around since the 1940s. It's nothing new. What's really cool is how Matrix applies that. So at Matrix, we refer to photogrammetry as stereoscopic imaging. So just like stereo sound works when you use a left and a right speaker, the wand uses stereoscopic image pairs to calculate measurements off of pixels. And the magic really happens when you combine those images with our software. And the software uses really complex algorithms to provide those precise and accurate measurements. And it's able to do it all the way down to the millimeter. The software is so advanced and so new that it's protected currently by 6 U.S. patents and 21 international patents. So there's a lot of innovation in the wand and how we're able to capture these measurements. So the technology's been through the ringer, it's been proven, and it's pretty exciting stuff. It's still state-of-the-art technology. So Roger, we kind of briefly touched on this. You know, the wand's extraordinarily versatile. I know it can be used on the front end of the process, and I know that the bodymen can use it, structural technicians. But you know, a lot of shops have to sublet some of these processes, and it can kind of go. The cars can end up going back and forth. Is there any way that we can utilize the wands, maybe in suspension or some of those other areas as well?
Oh, absolutely. You know, one of the things about the wand, and I don't know if you mentioned this or not, Avery, is that it's changed in size. It's not as wide as it once was. It's been shortened up, so it makes it far more easy to use and take it anywhere in the shop. It doesn't require that the database go with it. Just the wand itself can be taken to the site of this vehicle along with the calibration board. Because the calibration board, as you look at this image here, is the checkerboard or the circle board that you see under the hood. This confirms and actually establishes the accuracy of the tool. Because sometimes in our collision repair environment, we might drop this unit or we might bump it into things. And it's not a delicate piece of equipment. It really is delicate, but at the same time, it was built for durability. And so the thought process was that if we recalibrate it every time, it'll have accuracy that's beyond belief. So here's the thing. If I can carry this thing, I can take it to my mechanical department. I can take it to my structural department, estimating department, parts department. It can go basically anywhere. Your imagination, you got to use it. You just think, hey, can I use it to measure this and measure that? Because here's the benefit. I don't have to put this on my machine. I don't have to establish the center line. It measures the part with accuracy so I can check it to the openings, or I can check the measurements and then go back to a Mitchell program and actually confirm from the specifications through Mitchell from the cloud that the car is either right or wrong. So it can be used anywhere in the business model, anywhere. You can take it down the street to your mechanical shop, and if you want to, you can even bring the computer with you if you'd like, so you don't need to bring the whole stand. So it has a lot of versatility. If I'm doing suspension work, I can get the car in a twin post lift and jack it up in the air, and I think that we'll see that here. You know, the one thing to think about is that how many times, and I know I've been in this business a long time, that I see a lot of people in the industry struggle looking at suspension damage and going, what's wrong? And really, it's not that challenging when you think of it in simple terms. You have to have symmetrical measurements from one side to the other. So if I use the undamaged side of the car and establish measurements, and as Avery mentioned earlier, we can use points that we choose that maybe a database might not have, and this is one of those areas. And if we choose the points wisely to confirm the length of suspension components, and since this tool is so accurate down to a millimeter, it can tell us from side to side if we have bent components, because typically suspension parts, when damaged, get shorter. And so we measure the undamaged side and compare it to the possible damaged side. We can confirm with accuracy down to, is it the steering knuckle? Is it the lower control arm? Is it the strut assembly? And I want you to just think about this. Some of you on the phone have experienced this like I did when I ran a business. You send the car out for the alignment, you keep your fingers crossed and hope that it comes back with an alignment done. And when that car doesn't, it's like, oh no, now what? This tool, with the measurement that can be done in a very short period of time, can tell you what's wrong, and you'll have accuracy, so when you send it down to the alignment shop, it aligns every time. You can check the engine cradle positioning, which actually controls all your suspension. You can check your strut towers, since you can see them when you pop the hood open. You confirm those areas of the vehicle, the car will align. So this is great for us that have, you know, wet weather a lot of times, and the cars slide around and hit curbs or go into potholes. In the northern parts of the country, you have snow and ice. Suspension can be challenging, and it can actually make the production of the shop go a little slower because of the issues of not getting it identified right the first time. This tool eliminates that. So anyway, so here's the other thing I want you to consider is that as you use this tool, one of the things to consider is how does it work? And if you look at this, it actually takes an image, stereo image of the vehicle, and then from the electronics in the computer database, it measures the pixels in the image. Now, one of the things you'll see with the matrix system is that we will take and mark our holes. If we're going to measure certain holes of the car or certain points of the car, we want to use a water-soluble marker that has fluorescent colors in it, like in this example here, the yellow, or we can use orange, or we can use pink, depending on the color of the car. And we do this purposely because when we take the images that we've captured with the matrix wand, we take those images and we blow them up, and we blow them up to such a point that they become very granulated, because now we're seeing the pixels. We can identify these points now through that water marker, and then put our cursor in the center of that point, so it's now very, very large, and identify that point. Now, I know on the end of the phone, you're going to go, wait a minute now, what if I don't purposely get that thing in the right spot? Well, if we've magnified the image up to 100 times, and now we're looking at tenths or hundredths of a millimeter in a pixel, if you're 1 or 2 pixels off, it's not going to make much difference, because it'll still come up with a very accurate outcome. So that's what you're seeing here. You're seeing that the car is being measured, and we're actually going to mark those pixels. So the matrix software, here's the cool thing. Avery mentioned it earlier. We can measure through the car. So in this case here, we actually took the bumper cover off, but you're going to go, wait a minute. Do I need to take the car apart all the time? Maybe. But let's take a look at it from a realistic point of view. If the frame rails on the vehicle have moved from an impact to the bumper beam, if the frame rails moved, then it's also going to take those things welded to it, like the core support or the apron extensions, and move those too. And so if I can go ahead and measure the points of the parts of the car that are actually attached to the things that we think are damaged, we can start identifying movement right up front. And you know, that's a real interesting point too, because a lot of businesses, as Avery mentioned earlier on, do not catch this because the visual indicators are missing because of pedestrian safety, because the gaps can't be used, but measurements can. So that's one of the real benefits of this tool, because now, like I said earlier, I'm taking and using the actual image, which is the documentation, to create an outcome of success. So one of the things here too is I want to, and Avery, you're going to jump in on this as well too, is that we not only have tram bar type measurements, but we also have XYZ. These other measurements that you put into the system by changing the computer programming on it, and it does it automatically, is that it'll tell us if the frame rail is high or low in the measurements. It'll also tell us if it's moved to the right or to the left, and it'll also tell us the height and the width of that part. So, and we can measure all kinds of things. I want you to think about that. You can measure headlights, you can measure fenders, you can do all kinds of this stuff now. And keep in mind, we don't need to put this on a machine to establish center line. We're actually using the parts of the car. So Avery, do you have anything you want to add to this?
So Roger, you know, now that we're adding that third coordinate, we're getting that true 3D space. You know, it almost would make hanging doors a lot easier. You know, a lot of times, especially if we're using a salvage door, we're repairing the opening, maybe there's some damage to that B pillar. You know, is it the B pillar pushed too far in? Do we have a warped door that came in from salvage, or even an OE door? Or is it maybe the bodywork itself? Maybe that post needs to move. So Roger, you know, are we able to utilize the wand there to help us out as well?
You know, Avery, that's a great question. And because cars are built symmetrical, I can measure the undamaged side of the car, especially in the opening, and confirm that the opening on the damaged side has been restored. You know, when it comes to test fitting, you know, that's a common thing we used to use, and I've done it for 50 years. I will use the parts supplied to establish the body to where I believe it needs to go. But now we can actually measure this in a few minutes to get an outcome to tell us, is it the body or is it the part we're trying to hang? And by comparing that part that we've received to the other side of the vehicle, we can compare the door or the opening to the side that we're fixing. Another thing too is if I'm putting a quarter panel on a vehicle and I'm wondering, is the pillar in the right place? Is the wheelhouse in the right place? What about the trunk gutter? And what about the rear body panel or the taillight pocket? I can take this tool and measure in a very short period of time and then confirm and see where I'm going with this repair. Make those adjustments, image it again, and then compare the measurements from side to side. And so that's one of the beautiful parts of this tool, is that it can help me be more efficient in the repair of that vehicle. So I'm not wasting a lot of motion doing things that I can do with this tool. And if I compare one motion to the other, which one is going to give me the shortest outcome and the more success? And it's knowing what part is doing by measurement, So I'm not guessing where I'm hitting and straightening things to versus the test fit. And I'm not saying test fits are not valid, but I'm saying that we can reduce them a lot. And also too, I don't know about you on the phone, but I know that when I ran a business and worked in the shop, if you did test fits, sometimes that part just happened to fall off the car when you least expected it. Now you have even more damage. So this is a way to maybe reduce those test fits and get a more successful outcome.
So Roger, living down here in South Florida, a lot of body shops that I work with here locally run into the issue where they're often repairing cars that they can't source data for. You know, maybe they get 5 to 10 Maseratis a month, or the occasional Bentley or Rolls Royce. How are the Matrix wands, the shops that you work with that utilize the Matrix wands, how are they overcoming that and trying to utilize the wand in those scenarios as well?
Well, that's a real challenge, because each one of those cars a lot of them are hand built, hand fitted. And so what I can do is I can start measuring the other side of the vehicle and comparing it to the side that I'm working on. When I'm putting on the front structure of the vehicle on a Ferrari or something, you can basically start checking things. For example, when you get your parts on those types of cars, a lot of them really are not fitting the vehicle like you would in a production car, like a General Motors or a Chrysler or things like that. These parts have to be sometimes modified to make them fit the openings, because every car is custom built. But the tool can help us identify where we're off. So instead of putting this on the car and then going, how far am I off on this vehicle, I can now measure with accuracy to know exactly what I need to do with that part. I can also, apply those skills to the repair of that part or the modification of that part that I've received for those cars, and the tool will help me confirm my direction. For example, when I was out using this tool in a particular shop, which I'll leave unnamed, I called over 3 technicians on 3 different cars, and I said, if you were going to pull this car based on the damages, how would you fix it? 3 of them provided answers, and all 3 of them, based on the measurements, would have done something wrong. So by having these measurements available to them, they can build a better strategy without guessing and get the outcome that the customer deserves.
And the other thing that I don't know if we mentioned, but it's also going to allow you to save these vehicles that you deal with on a daily basis, whether it be Camrys or Honda Odysseys that you see a lot of, and maybe each of those cars has their own trick. If it be the lift gate, the lift gates typically come in warped, or something funny about the rear body panel on a Honda Civic. You can now save these projects into your reference library. So you can refer to them every time one of those vehicles comes across into your facility. The Matrix Wand truly is a tool that allows you to identify those exact damages, and the goal is to do it earlier in the process so the shop can better blueprint and see where that repair path is going to lead that vehicle. The estimators can easily document the structural damages for your insurance partners, and they can capture that complete damage, not only to reduce the amount of touches, but ultimately to increase revenue. The technicians can quickly troubleshoot the structural and body work. They can reduce the amount of times that they're reworking something or hanging doors, and it keeps them focused on the profit-making task. It keeps your ATech working on ATech stuff and keeps the flow of the shop running nice and smoothly, because you know exactly where that car is going to go. You know the complete damage. Nothing's surprising you anymore. And now the shop owner and the body shop can rest assured that the vehicles are leaving structurally sound, reducing everyone involved and reducing everyone's liability, everyone that's involved. So, now we're going into how we offer the Matrix Wand. And this is probably something that we've restructured the most. And it's how we're going to offer the wand to the market. Historically, we've only done it one way, where the customer must buy the complete and full system. And we've kind of divided that up into 3 different product offerings. The first includes the hardware. Now, this is the wand itself, the PC that you're going to run the software on. That's to spec. It needs a pretty decent sized computer, as well as the calibration board that Roger mentioned recalibrates the wand every single time you use it, and the Pelican case to keep the wand safe. We then pair this up with a subscription to Fender Bolt. Now, keep in mind, this isn't your normal software license agreement. This includes much, much more. It's including your on-site training for an actual Matrix certified, ASE certified technician to come out to your shop and train 3 to 4 of your guys in the shop. It includes the ICAR certified online training courses. And remember that that translates into 12 credit hours once they're completed, no matter who completes them, whether they're part of the on-site training or not. The phone and online support that's now powered by TeamViewer. So once Matrix is off-site, maybe 3 months later, you've got some turnover and you've got a new frame tech and he needs to train, not a problem. They can easily jump onto TeamViewer and we can take control of the computer, jump on a conference call, and it's like we're standing right there walking them through the actual process, controlling the mouse and the software right in front of them. It includes all of the Mitchell and Matrix updates that'll come out quarterly. So all of the new features and new cars that, all of the new features that Matrix releases and all of the new vehicles that Mitchell releases automatically come to your computer every quarter. So no one has to come out and do that. It's not a disk that you're popping in. We take care of that on the back end. We also provide the reporting and tracking for the shop owners and managers. So they're going to be able to see by user who's using the wand and what they're using it for. Now, finally, we make the blueprinting station optional, but we really encourage it if you don't already have a similar estimating cart or blueprinting area or process defined. This is a great place to consolidate everything. It comes with an extra monitor, the stand for the wand to sit on, and it comes with a cover that actually covers all of that up to keep the dust off of it when it's not in use. But it's a great place to keep everything all together for your blueprinting process. Now, this is really where it starts to get exciting. Like I mentioned, one of the biggest things we revamped is how we're offering the product and our pricing. So if you've been quoted in the past, these numbers probably look a lot better to your pocketbook. The biggest change is the flexibility that we're now extending to the shop. So like I said, we'll start here on the left side with the hardware. You purchase the hardware outright. It's yours forever for $21,500. And we bundle that up with one of our subscription offers. So you could get into the wand right now for as little as $23,500, which is a big difference from where the wand was just 6 months ago. And then, like I mentioned, the blueprinting station is then optional on top of that for an extra $2,500. So you've got different options depending on how much you want to bundle and save on future costs. Roger, did you want to take over right here talking about how we recoup that money?
I do. Yep, and this is an important piece because as we look at any piece of equipment, as a business owner, we need to figure out what is the return of investment. And so we're going to take you through a simple formula here, and when it's all done, you can take a picture of the screen if you want, so it'll give you some kind of an idea. It's very simple in concept, but it shows you how this tool can really provide benefits for your business. So the first thing in this formula, because numbers always drive the outcome, is how many vehicles does your repair facility process a month? So let's just use this example to keep it really simple and rounded out. Let's just say it's 100 cars. Now, the next thing we want to do is we want to say, okay, the number of vehicles with unidentified structural damage. Now, this we didn't talk about before, but typically when we've taken the wand into a business and we take a look at estimates, and these estimates don't have anything for them regarding the structural realignment of the vehicle. And I want you to think about this for a second. If I don't have the structural realignment in place, it takes the technician longer to put parts back on that car when the structure has not been corrected. And this is also going to throw off your ADAS systems when you try and recalibrate them. So we found on average that there is about, I'm going to do very conservative numbers here, 25% of the cars in for repair have unidentified structural misalignment. And as a matter of fact, if you go back into some news articles from Repair Driven News, you'll find that there was a comment made by Jake from Aztec that said when they were trying to recalibrate cars that were coming back in, that approximately 50% of those vehicles that were brought to them could not be calibrated because the structure was not corrected. So this is going to help you identify it, reduce your cycle time, but also change your profitability too. So if we just use a conservative number, not 50, but just 25. And what we did is we didn't ask your labor rate, so we went to the national averages and we looked it up. For collision repair work across the country, it's $52 an hour. So if we took those 25 cars and we went ahead and multiplied that by just one simple unit of time, you can come to $1,300 a month. And I want you to, and on the call, you're going to go, well, it would be more than that, more than $52. This is a very conservative figure because you're going to write what the car needs, not what we're showing you here. But this is just an example on a very conservative basis. Now, if you take that $1,300 increase and the efficiencies gained, you know, I mean, think about this. If I have cars that are better estimated, that don't get delayed in the shop, that means I have better cycle time, I have better throughput, and I have better profitability. So this is just talking about just damages missed, but that not the surrounding things. That's $15,600 a year. And then also too, you want to think about this: direct and indirect gains. I mean, like we said, better throughput, better cycle time, better customer satisfaction. The parts are more accurately identified for those that have been recommended by the car companies that need to be replaced because they can't be straightened based on the substrate. It's going to help the structural person know that this car needs to go into the cycle of structural repairs. So there's all kinds of benefits gained, parts department, and so on. This number here is quite conservative, and here's the catch. You've got to have the wand in use almost all day long. Because if you think about it, everything we do is restoring the vehicle to a proper dimension to satisfy the outcome of repair. So if you think about this in this simple form here, this is what your return of investment could be. So, Avery, any comments on that?
Yeah, I have to say that keep in mind these are very, very conservative numbers, Roger. You know, we've got some body shops who might see that kind of number, that yearly number in a month with their increases in revenue, just because they're utilizing the wand every aspect of the way, and they're measuring every car that comes through their facility to make sure that they can stamp their name on it at the end of the repair and know that nothing's wrong. And just by doing that, they're identifying the complete damage that only the wand can really give them in a quick enough time with the resources that are available, so they can capture those repairs and get paid for them. So I really want to emphasize these are pretty conservative numbers from what we've been able to determine.
Yep.
So I would love to encourage everyone to sign up for one of our web demos. This is about as much as we have time for the day, but we would love to get into the software and the nitty-gritty with you and your team. So you can visit www.thematrixone.as.me/web demo. This link should also be provided by Melissa, and we're going to put it in the comment section on the YouTube video once it pops up. So go to that link. It'll give you a nice Acuity calendar to look at, see all of our openings, and you can confirm one of those openings. And then we can spend about 45 minutes with your team. However, if you want to bring your frame tech, some estimators, maybe the owner of the shop on the demo, and then we can really jump into the nitty-gritty now that you understand what the wand does and how it does it. Roger, did you have anything you wanted to add before we close out?
No, that's great, Avery. And I want to thank everybody for their time today on this broadcast, because we know your time is valuable and we respect that. And thank you so much for joining us. Melissa?
Okay, well, thank you both. Does anybody have any questions for Avery or Roger? I will follow up by sending everybody their information along with that link. So if you do want a demo, and again, we're recording it, so we'll upload this to the website shortly as well. So if you want to look at this again and show it to any of your customers or your technicians, you can go back and look at this. I don't see any questions. You guys did an excellent job, very thorough. Can't thank you enough. And if we don't have any questions, I think we'll close it out, and we'll follow up with everybody. Thank you so much. Thanks everybody for their time today.